Good afternoon. This is your Pan-African show called Africa with your host Gatsalaork Seifu. We are hosting rather interesting guest today. Let me just ask our guest to introduce himself. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Samuel Ahadu. Most people call me Sami. And I was born and raised in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Graduated high school here. And before, the rest of my life began. Basically, I grew up during the Derg era. And so those of your viewers that remember that time, it was an interesting and difficult time, both for my family and for the country at large. So after graduating, I became a refugee. My story starts obviously in Ethiopia, and it continues into Djibouti. I was in exile in Djibouti for about a year and 8 months before getting political asylum and moving to the United States.
So let's back up a little and tell our viewers why you even went to Djibouti.
The time was during the Derg era. At the time, my father was a political prisoner. And
I'm sorry, now we're going to have to back up a little bit more. Who's your father?
Who is my father? Okay, my father is Ahadu Sabure, famous journalist and diplomat. And he served the Ethiopian government under many capacities, mainly as a journalist and a diplomat. And that's who he is. And
that was during the emperor's reign, right?
That was during the emperor's reign and also the beginning of the revolution. He was, for a very short time, the Minister of Information, the office where he had been earlier, and he had faced some difficulties. So he came back as the minister. As it turned out, again, it was that time the prime minister was Prime Minister Ndalkacho Mokonnen.
Okay.
And as it happened, they had disagreements, and my father had to resign from there. And shortly after that, he was appointed as governor of Harar province by General Aman Ando. Again, we're talking about history that happened. And after that, the general got executed, and then my father had to continue with his job, where he did about 1 year, and that's where he was imprisoned from Harar.
Okay.
So his prison life started from there. He was imprisoned a total of 7 years and 4 months. So that was, he was imprisoned, I believe, in 1975, late 1975. And during all those years, it was my mother that was supporting the family. And she was also a very remarkable woman. She was one of the first female taxi drivers, actually. And that's how she supported our family during the revolution. And many people know her as that. They remember her, those people who are of that age. And she's a very remarkable, very strong lady, and she kept our family together intact. In fact, I would say she was the hero of that era, because without her, I don't know what our family would have become. So in any case, I finished high school at the International Community School. That's where I finished. And soon after that, the conditions were really very bad, to be honest. So I had to flee. I didn't want to, in the sense that both my brother and sister had left at the time. But also me, I had to. So I fled through Djibouti, a city called Malka Jabdu, just outside Djibouti, was where I started my journey, and to the Djibouti frontier. Took about 8 days. Yeah, it was a tough journey, but I learned a lot, and that's where I became a refugee officially.
Okay.
So Djibouti, I stayed, like I said, about a year and 8-9 months. And in those days, being a refugee was much easier, I would say, because there was not that many of us. And we were on the right side of the Cold War in terms of the politics of the time. So we were given political asylum and go to the States. So it was very easy. The immigration process was not that difficult once we passed the interview process and was granted asylum. And there I started my life in the United States in 1983.
Wow.
Yeah.
How old were you at that point?
By the time I got to the States, I believe I was 21. I was 18 when I was a refugee, so I turned 19 in Djibouti. I was 21 when I got to the States, so I was pretty young. It was exciting times. It was the 80s, early 80s. Reagan was the president, and that's where my life started in the States.
So you lived in the States, your life started there. And what did you decide to do? Did you go to school or just work, trying to just acclimate yourself within, a certain...
Well, the first 2 years, I stayed a total of 14 years in the United States. So the first 2 years, I was in Santa Cruz. I think you know the city. It's a very beautiful city. So I stayed there. It was nice for me, to get used to the United States, the life. So I did go to school, although I finished in Los Angeles. So I stayed in Santa Cruz for 2 years before relocating to Los Angeles. And I lived 12 years in Los Angeles, went to school there, worked, did what most immigrants
actually
do
have to do
in the
to
United
survive.
States. Yeah, so I enjoyed my time in Los Angeles and Santa Cruz. I enjoyed my time in the United States, but as time went on, I felt like I just needed something different. I thought at the time I would come back to Africa. I would come back home here to Ethiopia or somewhere in Africa and continue my life,
Right.
I had enough of the United States. I had stayed 14 years. As it happened, I ended up in China. It was as big a surprise to me as all my friends.
Off to China.
Off to China, and yeah.
That has to be an experience because, as you had mentioned to me, you lived there for 20 years.
Exactly.
So during the time of you living in China, that experience has to be completely different from the US or Ethiopia for that matter.
I would say it was completely different from the States, but not as different from Ethiopia as I would have imagined prior to going to China.
Okay.
Actually, China has many similarities. That's why I felt much more at home in China than I did in the United States, actually. Although I spoke the language and, culturally it was easier to deal with the United States. But I felt more at home in China because it reminded me so much of Ethiopia in many ways. I mean, and if you think about the history of both countries, it's very similar. Long history of imperial rule. They were ruled by emperors, as we were. And then they had the whole communist experience. As did we. Ours was a shorter experience than theirs. And so there were a lot of, it's an ancient country, so you feel that, their culture is very old and they are set in their ways as we are. They like doing things their way. It might not make sense to outsiders, but they're really patriotic people. They really are comfortable in their own skin. They like who they are.
Who they are.
And then, when I got there, I went there in August of 1997. They had just reclaimed Hong Kong back. And I believe it was their start of their rise, and I saw it, I witnessed it. I witnessed their growth. I was there, I lived like literally 5 minutes from the Olympic Stadium. I saw it being built, and I was lucky enough to get tickets. I saw our athletes, we celebrated, it was great. I saw China rising, and I saw it firsthand, and I saw that it wasn't magical, there was no secret remedy, that they really worked hard, and they really loved their country. And that was it, really. Yeah. And each of them felt like they were part of the overall rise of China. Each person I met. And so it was a beautiful experience. It affected my life much more. My kids were born there, both of them. One of them is here. They fluent in Chinese, and I feel blessed that I was able to raise them there. And they're really close to China, as you can imagine, and so it was a great time.
So from China, you came back home?
Back home. Yeah.
Okay. Before we come back home, I'm going to invite you some music.
Beautiful.
I'm going to take you to Suriname.
Nice.
And the title of the song is Maroon.
Okay.
And he featured DJ Lekani Kayot.
I know your story, get to know mine. I'm from the bush, I'm from the river.
Now we come back to Ethiopia.
Yes.
So you came back to Ethiopia and you decided to start a few different things.
Yes.
One of them, as I know, was honey.
Yes. Yeah. It was actually my first business.
Yeah. So I would like to know what even pushed you towards the honey industry and how it was, and if you're still doing that.
Yes, I'm still doing it. How I started was actually because of COVID.
Okay.
When COVID started, it was clear that it was a kind of a lung condition, and I knew before and also during that time that honey was one of the things that's always recommended anyway when you have a cold or any kind of lung situation. Honey with ginger and garlic, it's a common Ethiopian remedy. So I thought, why not?
Exactly.
Yeah, why not honey? And it's just, it really was not planned. It was not something I thought about and made a huge business plan. And it was very spontaneous, and spontaneously I was able to find a very steady supplier, high quality honey. And I was lucky enough, once I was licensed to do the business, to distribute it was okay for me. It wasn't as difficult as, I guess COVID helped because people were really eager to have honey at the time. So I was able to give my honey to different supermarkets and hotels, and yeah, I still have my current customers, and I still do it. It's not the biggest part of our operation in Caribou Import and Export and Caribou Events and Caribou Kids Zone, but it's the first one, so it's a very important part of our business. And from honey, we slowly went into Caribou Kids Zone, which is a children's play area where we have some swimming and bouncy castles and just children from the age of 2 to 12. Okay. So we're open 7 days at the Addis Ababa Golf Club. And we will come back to that. So that is what I do, on a daily basis. And I've been doing the Caribou Kids Zone for about over a year now, a year and a few months. And I'll invite yourself and your viewers to come and visit us. Like I said, we're open 7 days. Addis Ababa Golf Club by Tor Hailoch. So that's the main business that I'm involved in. Obviously, the reason I came today, yeah.
So now you told me a little bit about Caribou events, Caribou Kids, and now Caribou Expo.
Yeah.
But before we get into all of that, how you even came up with the name Caribou?
Caribou. Very
Because I'm sure it had some kind of a meaning
It does.
for you.
It does. I thought about it, and now again we will have to go back.
Yeah, we could.
In time to China. My experience in China, the one thing, I was always a Pan-Africanist. I didn't become a Pan-Africanist by going to China. But it really strengthened my Pan-Africanism because we had to be together as Africans in China. We were not many, obviously. So that drew us together. Really, it was one of the best experiences in terms of my time in China, was the experience I had with my fellow Africans and the bonds we created that exist to this very day. A lot of us are very successful in our fields. Some of them even came here and are here. One of them is the deputy ambassador of Namibia. I knew him as a student in China, and we grew together, and we created a team called Africa United Football Team. It was both a football team and it was a social club. It was a reason for us to always meet in the weekends, watch the game, and then we hang out. And it really, really, really strengthened my own personal convictions. And we created a very strong network of friends over the 20 years I was there. A lot of us are in different parts of the world right now. We have some in Australia, in Europe, a lot of them in Africa that have grown both in the private sector and some in the governmental. And so I'm really proud of the work we did as Africans in China. So, to come back to your original question, Caribou. When I was thinking about naming our company, I wanted it, first of all, the name to be also outside, a name that could work in Ethiopia as well as the rest of Africa. I wanted a name like that. I didn't want to name it some name that's just very local, specific to Ethiopia. So I called a friend of mine. He passed away, actually. COVID killed him. God bless his soul. So I called him and I told him, I want a name. I wanted a Swahili name, because Swahili is a language that's spoken in more than one country.
Right.
Should be probably one of the African languages that should be taught in school. I think they should teach it in school here as well. That would make us closer to
Absolutely.
Our Kenyan brothers, our Tanzanian, Ugandan, Rwandan, Burundi. It's spoken even in Congo. That's how far it goes. So he told me, call it Caribou. My late brother, Kagashani, he told me to call it that. I asked him, what does it mean? He said, it means welcome. I said, perfect. It's a nice, short, punchy name.
Absolutely.
It was perfect. So that's why Caribou, it has a deeper meaning than just...
So when you decided to start your PLC, you obviously thought it was important to do certain things around the country, yes, or even within the continent.
Yes.
So what do you think was the real reason behind you opening Caribou PLC? I don't want to call it event or children, because it's
Caribou,
wider than...
Caribou PLC is the one that covers all of them.
All of them, yeah.
Well, it was a commercial entity. I didn't open it as an NGO. Let's just put that out
definitely
there. It's a profit-making organization. But at the same time, part of me always has this feeling that what you do should impact your environment. And so that was one of the reasons I opened it. And our first product was honey. Honey is, it was a profit-making enterprise for us.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we were promoting our own product. Everything we used was produced here. The packaging, obviously the honey itself. So we wanted, actually I tried to do a lot of business with import, export prior to, and I just came to the conclusion that, there's currency problem, and when you're trying to, there's many problems when you're actually trying to do business here. So, but I said, if I can have a product that's local, that I don't have to import anything, then I don't need dollars.
Exactly.
So honey was perfect for me. The packaging, like I said, is produced here. Everything about it is local, and eventually we want to export our honey, actually. And we came close a couple of times. You'd be surprised at how protectionist African markets are. We ourselves are very protectionist. The Ethiopian market is one of probably the most closed, so we don't have really a right to talk about other people closing their markets. But we faced that, actually. Our honey couldn't be exported because countries were protecting their local producers, and it happened to us,
In a way, that's a good thing. In a way.
It's a good thing, obviously.
Yeah, because if we wanted to import honey,
it would affect our producers. Yeah.
So if they say no, they're obviously protecting you guys.
But it's very difficult. If we practice protectionism, then we can't trade with each other. So at some point, we're going to have to risk the competition. Basically, what it is you have to compete. Like if they're bringing honey from outside, then your honey producers have to step up their game.
Absolutely.
Both in terms of the quality of the honey, the packaging, the advertising. So I mean, if you want to trade, then you can't be afraid of competition. So ourselves, like I said, the Ethiopian market is very protected market. I don't think a lot of our business people even realize actually how protected our markets are. But at the same time, at some point, they're signing treaties, inter-African trade, and not a lot of countries have ratified it. They've signed up to it, but you have to ratify it and put it into. I know we'll get there. I'm confident we'll get there. So, for me, Caribou PLC is part of that. It's part of that struggle to integrate. Obviously, by the way we named it itself, we had that in mind.
So now we have an upcoming expo.
Yes, we do.
Now, Caribou decided to undertake this big expo.
Yeah, we did.
So I would like you to give us, why did you pick safety and security? And then now I think environmental protection has been added to it.
Yes,
which is
it has.
In itself huge.
Exactly.
So,
it's a very ambitious.
I know. So I don't know where you want to start, but there's 3 things you have to cover. Safety,
I want to start from the very beginning.
Okay.
As always, it helps to start from the beginning. The reason, first of all, we formed a subsidiary company called Caribou Events. So basically, this is our first event that we're doing under Caribou Events. And when we were thinking about it a few months back, what should be our first event? We didn't want to do the easy way. In other words, we didn't want to just set up a bazaar and have people come there and sell their goods. And, nothing wrong with that, mind you. Nothing wrong with that. But we just wanted to do something different, something maybe that would...
Impactful, maybe?
Yes, that would have an impact in our surroundings. So the idea was the idea of our CEO, Ato Tashoma. You met him at the press conference. And he had been wanting to do this for some time, actually. So finally, when we decided, okay, we need to think about what we want to do as our first project, the idea came to do a safety and security expo. Obviously, myself, I was a little bit taken aback by the idea. But the more I thought about it, the more we discussed it, the more I thought about it, I thought, okay, yes, we will do an expo that specifically covers safety, security, and now, as you mentioned, environmental protection, because we believe that all of them actually are in the same.
Yeah, they're intertwined.
Yeah, they are intertwined. And so that's why we did it.
You decided.
We knew it would be difficult. We knew it didn't have obvious commercial consideration. But as we went into it, we started meeting companies and organizations that are involved in safety, security, fire prevention, road safety, and companies that sell safety equipment. And so we decided, once we had decided, that encouraged us. Governmental institutions also were very, Ministry of Social Affairs, Women's and Children's Affairs, and many other different organizations were very excited to join us, which gave us further impetus to add environmental protection, because some of the people we approached are the ones that pushed us actually to do it, because they asked us, if you are talking about safety and security, you can't leave out environmental protection. In terms of that. So first, I will divide it into two parts, the safety and security. We can discuss it first, and then we can go into the environmental protection. Safety and security obviously affects all of us, both as individuals, as families, as companies, the residential security, institutional security, building security, road safety, all those issues are combined in safety and security. So we decided to bring all the professionals in this field, both in terms of for them to advertise and to promote their services and goods, but also to interact with one another, the ones that are involved in the sector, but in different aspects of the sector. Cybersecurity professionals, industrial security professionals, non-governmental, governmental institutions that are involved in public safety, public security, hospitals, insurance companies. I mean, the thing, as we got into it, we realized
it's pretty
how
deep.
very big it was. And so, and those institutions didn't have the chance, actually, to both advertise what they do and also to interact with other professionals. So they were really, the feedback has been amazing, I have to say.
Because this is the first of its kind.
I believe so. It's the first I've heard of, anyway.
Yeah.
And so both the governmental institutions and the private institutions have been very excited, have been cooperating with us. I would like to tell you that booth space is going very quickly. So if there are companies that are involved in the safety and security sector, please contact us. I will give you our contact information.
Yeah, we'll put it on the bottom.
And so that's how everything started and everything is progressing. Again, I want to say our expo takes place June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th at the Addis Ababa Golf Club Garden.
Beautiful.
By Tor Hailoj.
Beautiful. So now, breaking down safety and security. For example, just so people would clearly understand what you mean by safety.
Okay.
Can you give us an example of what it means to feel safe as a human, as a country? Because this is not just as an individual, it's also all around, right?
Yes.
So that is,
for me, what we mean when we say safety and security, it involves, like I said, the personal safety, our personal safety. For instance, road safety. We're walking around somewhere. There's a construction site. They have dug a hole. You didn't see the hole. You fall in there, break your leg, can get paralyzed. I mean, all kinds of accidents happen on a daily basis in Ethiopia. Safety regulations exist, but they are not enforced. I think I've sent you a picture of a safety ramp, an access ramp.
Yeah.
I don't
The
know if we
wheelchair
can
ramp.
show our viewers, but it's amazing. I just saw it a couple of days ago. First of all, the ramp was too narrow to begin with, and the end of it has broken. That is what we mean when we mean safety. We mean safety both for individuals that are able-bodied, as well as our disabled population. Now that we come to that, when we talk about safety and security, one of the main sections of our program deals with our disabled population, which happens to number anywhere from 25 million to 30 million. That's more than some countries.
Right, population.
It's a huge population that has been underserved, undervalued, and so we want to involve them. There's a journalist that you met at, he's the one spearheading our safety and security expo in terms of the disabled community, because he himself is disabled. And he has had to face so many struggles. You know, from the first day I met him, I wanted to do something in this field. And so when buildings are being constructed, we want them to consider the disabled community, both in terms of access, both in terms of, for example, accident prevention is one of our sections that we are talking about. Accident prevention, if you have, for example, evacuation plans, how are you going to evacuate your disabled tenants, for instance? Is that put in the evacuation plan? Because they will need special needs, especially during an evacuation. So, I mean, safety and security, honestly, in Ethiopia, the time is long overdue.
Yeah, it has not been addressed.
It has not been addressed both by the private sector when they are building their buildings, the construction section, the road builders, hospitals. Hospitals say medical safety. You know, medical accidents is what paralyzed our friend Mr. Tasfai. And so it's a huge section. I'm sure we will not be able to cover all the things that we want to cover.
But it's a beginning.
Exactly. But also what we want to do is set up panel discussions in the different areas that we're talking about right now. Road safety, have road safety professionals come there and discuss with other professionals what is being done. Building safety, medical safety. So we will have panel discussions in as many different subjects as we can. Also, again, involving the environmental protection. And so, yeah, we're really excited about our event. It's coming along nice.
Yeah, that's a very serious. We on a daily basis, as you say, we see these problems. And one thing that really, how do you say, it broke my heart when Tasfai mentioned that recently there were, I think, 2 people that were blind that actually died in an elevator.
Accident, yes.
What kind of accident happens in an elevator?
Even for people who are not blind, you face so many obstacles on a daily basis when you're walking or driving. You see it on safety sites, on construction sites. A lot of them don't even wear helmets, don't have harnesses when they're,
So who's liable? Like when a doctor makes a mistake, when construction site, somebody falls and dies or becomes, handicapped or paralyzed, who is liable for all of these mistakes that are going on within the country?
Well, that is the question we are hoping to address. To raise the awareness that, as I said, some of these laws exist on the books, but the enforcement agencies really need to step up their game. I have to be honest and say it.
That we do have a reinforcement.
But to enforce the laws that are already in the books. And I believe there is a Disability Act in Parliament right now. And Parliament needs to pass that. And the federal government needs to enforce it. Again, it's well and good to pass laws and,
have laws.
But if the laws don't have teeth, if they are not enforced, if there's not a cost associated, to answer your question, if there's a medical accident, I think a hospital or the insurance company of the hospital should be liable. If there's a road accident, I think the road authority should be liable. If there is cost attached to it, people will start addressing safety, trust me. When people pay the penalty for not addressing, right now there's really no cost attached to it. So that, I mean, we close roads. I think Ethiopia is the only country that literally, if you have a construction site, you can legally close the road next to it. You can close it. You can put your sand and your, all the material you need for your construction.
You're not supposed to. You're supposed to put it within the compound.
Of course not. How can it even be? I mean, obviously, it couldn't be legal.
No.
But it seems,
you would think that it is,
Again, we come back to enforcement because we don't have the enforcement,
There's no liability.
Yeah, there's no cost to it. So these things, there has to be a cost attached to safety violations.
Right.
And that is, I think, one of the issues that is the most important in terms of the Safe Addis Expo.
Now, we're going to come to the environment protection.
Thank you.
When we say environment, even, when you're walking down the street and you ask one person, so what do you think about our environment today? What kind of an answer do you think you're going to get?
Well,
do we even know what we are doing to our environment is really my question.
I think I'm an optimist by nature. I always look at the glass as half full. So I think we are getting better.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. When I first moved back home, I stayed at my family's home. So I was, it had been kind of run down. Nobody was living in it. So fixed it up. One of the things I did was make an outside garden because they had made a trash dump out of it years before. So I didn't want that story to start. So I made a garden outside. Trees, flowers, I tell you, when I first started the garden, every week, people would trash it, throw all kinds of things. So every single week, at least 2 madabaria full of trash had to be picked up from that outside garden. Because people just throwing everything. But now, no. Now, sometimes in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe I do 1 madabaria of trash. So that shows you
that we're learning.
We are.
Yeah. When you see
because
something
it's
nice.
for the people. I have my garden inside the house.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's nice. But I wanted to do something for us, even me, when I go out and walking, I want to see something nice, So I think we are improving. I think we are understanding that we do have an impact, that we can change our little spot that we can. Yeah. So to answer your question, it depends who you ask. But I think overall, I think it is changing. Some of the policies the present government has done have really helped in that sense. The greening of Addis, the planting of all the trees has, in fact, I believe, made a measurable difference in the air quality of Addis, in the rain amount that rains, as we have seen. I don't know if these past rains are attributed to that.
Out of the ordinary.
But I do know that myself, I have noticed the air quality. And so we do have the power to change it.
Absolutely.
But to go back, again, environmental protection, I want to just break down what we mean.
Exactly.
And who are involved with us in this field.
And how you plan on actually, because this is basically, the Expo is awareness, right?
Yes.
For people. So I would like to know what your intentions are for the people.
Well, it's well and good to raise awareness. I mean, I'm a very big proponent because it first starts with an idea in your head. So if you know it in your head, to actually translate it into practice is much easier.
Yeah.
And so what's the participants and the people who are involved with us, both in terms of, again, companies, governmental organizations, and non-governmental organizations, are people who are involved in Natural resource protection and conservation, that's one of them. Waste management and recycling is another. These are actual people that have signed up and are going to be participating. Clean and renewable energy, which, I think Ethiopia really has done a very good job in terms of the dams and the other projects that we are doing. In fact, there is a project at Koshe where they use methane gas that's produced by the trash to produce, they don't produce a huge amount of electricity, but they produce electricity.
So biogas.
So biogas. So that they are, those kind of projects have started, and that's the way forward, actually. So these are people that are involved in clean and renewable energy, agricultural improvements, companies that are involved in that, both with seeds and in terms of, some technologies to make our agriculture more efficient as well as more sustainable. Climate mitigation. That's what I was talking about earlier. Tree planting. We can change the environment around us, actually, and it is within our power. It's not like, this far thing that's too huge. And, if each of us plants trees, if each of us, cultivates a little garden around our house, and it will just make the air quality better, first of all. The water quality will be better. And so erosion problems will be mitigated. There is a lot of things that we can actually do that's within our power. I think in terms of raising awareness, that's the awareness I think has to be raised. So that the power is in the hand of the individual or the community, the Kabale, the Edir, all these guys can make
a huge difference.
A huge amount of difference. And we don't have to always wait for the government, the make an order, They're doing what they can, and I think the society also should participate. Another one is earth-friendly products. We have companies that do sustainable shoes, using sustainable products. We are trying to get in touch with one company actually in Kenya that uses plastic and sand, plastic materials, recycled plastic, to make bricks for homes and industrial use. It's really, they have found it to be even stronger actually than the normal bricks. Yeah, they have found it to be stronger. So that kind of technology is easily accessible. It's what we want to promote after the event. So we have contacted this company, we want to work with them, we want them to come here, open their plant or
even educate us.
Educate us and we can be partners. Exactly. Or, there is so much work to be done. Another one is animal care and feed. Also, sustainable animal care, sustainable animal feed. Not use as many chemicals and as many in the feed. For our country, in this way, most of what we grow and raise are mainly agriculturally safe and sustainable. So in this way, the only time we get into problem is when we try to industrialize the agriculture in terms of dairy farms or big industrial, then they will use pollutants for and then the runoff. But generally, Ethiopian, if we emphasize our traditional raising methods and crop rotating, and I think in terms of that field, we are not as bad off as we are in certain areas. Okay, the other one is population control and family planning. Ecotourism, obviously, it's self-explanatory, trying to, attract tourists that are coming to places that are sustainable and, that don't do damage to our overall environment. And then we want to, the last part is last but not least, is we want to encourage innovators. Artistic innovators, industrial innovators. We want to work with artists that use recycling products. We just want to support the innovators and give them the platform so that people can know them.
Exactly.
That they are known, and maybe they will find an investor that will like back their product, and Ethiopia can benefit, the inventor as well as the businessman can benefit. So we want to, by the way, this is not the last one we are going to do this event.
No, this is the beginning.
This is the first one, and it's going to be continuing, and we want to do even projects that are attached to this expo that are ongoing in terms of the arts, in terms of agriculture, in terms of any other
all the different
products.
sectors.
Yes, we want it to be ongoing to our next big expo. Talking about the bigger picture of what we're doing with this expo is we don't want to just do a 3-day expo, forget about it, and meet next year when we do our next one. We want to have ongoing projects that we build on and that we support, and especially the artists and the entrepreneurs and the innovators that are not really getting a voice because maybe they don't have the capital.
Right.
People don't know about them, and it's really difficult. They are afraid their idea will be stolen. There's many setbacks that you can face, but anyway, we want to give them a safe space and to allow them to come and at least exchange ideas without fearing that, somebody will do something shady with it.
So what do you think is the best way as a country to overcome our safety issues?
I think it's like an alcoholic first has to know he's an alcoholic.
Right.
To start dealing with it. We have to know we have a problem, and it's really serious. We don't take it seriously till somebody dies.
Somebody
and
you
we're
know.
like, oh my God, it's an ongoing day-to-day, hour-to-hour focus on this issue, both safety and security, especially safety. Especially safety, the individual safety, road safety, all the different issues that I mentioned, the disabled issue, which I want to again come back to. We have to focus on our brethren and our sisters who are less able than we are. We have to focus on them. We have to help them when we see them on the street. We have to protect them, and we do. Our society is actually really, really very good with that. And I see people, crossing
the street.
Really. But I think it has to be much more systematic. It can't be just on an individual basis. First, it starts from the top. The government has to take safety and security of its citizens very seriously. The federal enforcement agencies, the local enforcement agencies have to be very serious in enforcing all these violations that we see. You don't even have to look hard.
No, you
to
don't.
see safety violations in Ethiopia, And so all these organs of government have to take it seriously. Then comes to us, the public. We have to take it seriously. We have to make ourselves aware. We have to make our neighbors aware, our area aware, protect all our people the same way that we want to be protected. If you see something wrong, don't just say, okay, I'll just avoid it myself. But not, at least let your neighbor know.
Right.
Even on just a local basis, we have to be responsible for our own safety as well. We can't just wait for, other organs to protect us. Do what we can. That's what the advice I have for your viewers.
This year is going to mark
World Environment Day.
Exactly.
It's the
What's
fifth.
the slogan?
I believe creating a safe and secure working environment for employees.
Okay, and also beat plastic solutions.
And beat plastic solutions is an additional slogan that we have added
in Ethiopia.
Because
our plastic is just...
It's just killing us.
It's killing us. And I think we should mention one or two things around plastic and how you have plans on educating the people that come to the Expo about what to do about plastic waste.
Truly, one of the biggest challenges worldwide as well as in Ethiopia is the proliferation of plastic pollution in our waters, in our soil, in the air, in our bloodstream. We actually literally consume a certain fraction of microplastics is found in the human body. It's so pervasive. Some countries have outlawed it.
Yep.
So I mean, there are legal recourses that can be done in order to combat plastic pollution. But I think I'm always a little bit skeptical about governmental solutions to problems. I believe problems have to be solved organically in the neighborhoods. And then from neighborhoods to the people have to understand that, look, these plastic bags that are so convenient are literally killing us, killing our children, killing the environment and all that. The water supply, I mean, it is a mess. The oceans. So what it starts is people have to learn how to take a reusable bag to the shop.
No, it's not. We used to have those zambiles, remember?
Yes, our mothers used to use them because they are smart.
We need to bring those back.
Yes, bring back the zambiles. The people have to be educated.
Well, I thank you very much. But before we say our goodbyes,
okay,
I have noticed you brought a book.
Yes, I have.
So if you could please, we can close with
First
that.
of all, it's a present for you, the book I brought. This book is written by my father, Ahadu. So anyway, this is the book that he wrote before passing away. It's the end of the emperor's reign and the rise of the Dark. And it's an interesting historical book. This is volume 1. There's volume 2 to be published. So I just wanted to promote his book.
Where can they find it?
They can order it from myself.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah. So we'll leave all the information for them.
And so I just wanted to do that, plus bring you a present.
Thank you very much.
So that's
I truly
what
appreciate
the book is
it.
about. Here you go.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
And I'm going to invite you a Senegalese song. His name is Meta and the Cornerstone. The name of the song is Two Pockets. And I hope you enjoy it.
Yes. Thank you. And thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. We have come to the end of our conversation. We thank you very much for coming to our studio and giving us this opportunity to have this conversation with you.
Thank you.
And we wish you the best of luck with your expo.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll see you there.
Absolutely.
It will be fun.
If there's any last words that you want to say.
I want to address the youth of Ethiopia, who happen to be about 70% of the whole population. It's a lot of you guys. I want to address you. This is your country. Take control of it. Be responsible for it. Love it. Love your country. Be patriotic. You know, love your neighborhood. We were really, when I was growing up, we used to love our neighborhoods. We used to have like rivalries, you know. And we were so proud to come from whichever part of Addis you come from. It's beautiful. And be proud of it. And take care of it. You are the inheritor, so God bless.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This is your Pan-African show called Africa with your host Qazalaorq Seifu. Please tune in on Saturdays from 4 to 5 on Arts TV. Thank you for watching.